Forget all the gossip about the quality of Bollywood films. Let's jump into an American movie where the main character is actually Indian. A family boards a ship bound for Canada. But this ship? Think Titanic. Only the main character survives. How did he drift at sea? Did he live or die? And is Poseidon in this movie? Welcome to the recap of Life of Pi. The story follows Pi Patel, better known simply as Pi. His name comes from a swimming pool in Paris. One so clean the water makes Aquafina look dirty. Pi's father gave him that name in the hope that his son would have a soul as pure and clear as the water itself. Pi was born in Pondicherry, a seaside city that looks French because, well, it used to be a French colony. It's a beautiful city by the ocean. His father ran a hotel and opened a zoo inside the botanical gardens. His mother was a botanist working there. They married, and a year later, Pi's brother Ravi was born. 2 years after that, Pi himself came into the world. His fancy French name made him quite charming, until it became a curse. Because Pi sounded like P, every kid at school mocked him as the P boy. Even teachers weren't much help. Forced to defend his dignity, Pi started explaining the deep meaning of his name to every class, every lesson, even gym. From a young age, Pi's mother filled his head with tales of Indian gods and heroes. To him, they were like superheroes, always protecting the weak. But his father dismissed them all as nonsense. One day, Pi and Ravi went up a hill, not to pick tea leaves, but to plant them. By day 3, boredom struck. Ravi dared Pi to drink holy water for 2 rupees. 2 rupees was 2 rupees, so Pi took the dare. A priest caught him and, instead of scolding, offered him mineral water. Like any curious child, Pi started asking questions. What's God's real name, Father? Jesus? Okay. You're a priest, right? Then do you know how to actually talk to God? After listening to the priest, Pi's heart filled with faith, and he began to see himself as a child of God. Amen. Later, he explored Islam too, discovering Allah, along with a sense of peace and brotherhood. One warm evening, at a family dinner, Pi's father challenged him. You can't belong to 3 religions at once. You're just chasing after what you believe, instead of what is right. In the past 100 years, science has given humanity more than religion did in 10,000. Faith must be intelligent, not blind. Only then can you act rightly. And faith remains just doubt until it's truly tested. One seemingly ordinary day, Pi and Ravi sneaked into the special feeding room where a newly arrived Bengal tiger was kept. Pi wanted to see this king of the jungle up close. He held a piece of meat at the cage door, watching the tiger step closer. Ravi bolted in fear, but Pi stayed, gripping the raw meat, eyes locked with the beast. Just as the tiger drew near, their father stormed in, shouting so loud the tiger leapt back. Tigers are animals, not friends, he warned. Pi argued, animals have souls too. Words failed, so his father tied a goat to the cage door. In seconds, the tiger ripped it apart before Pi's horrified eyes. A brutal but unforgettable lesson. Time passed, and the boy became a teenager. Still haunted by that lesson, Pi wrestled with questions of existence. Then, hormones gave him another reason to live. One day he filled in as a drummer for a dance class. There, his gaze locked onto Anandi, the rising star who could easily win So You Think You Can Dance, India. Like any smitten Indian boy, he didn't send pictures of his private parts. No, he chose to secretly follow her home. But girls are always sharper than remotes. Anandi confronted him. He fumbled an answer, asking about the meaning behind her dance instead. That sparked a connection, and soon he was showing her around his father's zoo, a bold and smart move. At another family dinner, Pi's father dropped a bombshell. They'd have to close the zoo. Without government support, it couldn't survive. They'd sell the animals in Canada to fund a new life. Pi had to say goodbye to Anandi and board a ship with his family, the Ship of Destiny. That night, they clashed with the ship's cook, who claimed sausages and pork liver were vegetarian. After that fight, nobody even cared for dinner. Pi and his father tranquilized the animals to prevent seasickness. Pi also sneaked a banana snack. Protein was missing from the menu. 4 uneventful days drifted by, but then came the Mariana Trench. Storms hit with brutal rain and raging winds. Sensitive by nature, Pi noticed the ship rocking harder than usual. His curiosity pulled him onto the deck, where he faced the raw fury of the sea. But wonder quickly turned to horror as he saw sailors swept away by towering waves. Pi raced back to save his family, but it was too late. Water flooded everything. His father's animals escaped, panicked and scattering. Screaming desperately, Pi reached out to people escaping in lifeboats. They shoved him onto one, yelling for him to leave while he still could. Just as Pi hesitated, a zebra leapt aboard, tipping the lifeboat into the raging sea. Waves battered the small vessel like a pinball, yet Pi managed to glimpse the giant ship sinking into the black depths. He blew his whistle, hoping survivors would hear. But the one who came was his old lesson, the Bengal tiger, fighting its way onto the boat. Terrified, Pi jumped into the sea, only to realize the ocean was even deadlier than the beast. So he scrambled back aboard, sharing the boat with the frightened zebra from the lifeboat. Pi called out hopelessly for his family as the storm subsided. Searching, he saw no sign of the tiger. Thinking it safe, he bailed water with a bucket, until a sudden noise under the top revealed not the tiger, but a snarling hyena. Grabbing an oar, Pi defended himself against the crazed beast, which eventually retreated. Just then, a bundle of bananas floated near, carrying the family's pet orangutan. She'd lost her family too. Pi barely had time to reunite before the hyena lunged again, disrupting everything. By nightfall, seasickness gave way to hunger. The hyena attacked the zebra, biting its backside while the others looked on in horror. The next day, Pi woke up coughing from seawater and realized the lifeboat had emergency supplies hidden under the top. He found rations and a life vest. Cleverly, he tied wooden oars to the vest, creating a makeshift raft, just in case, but survival had no mercy. The hyena, after finishing off the zebra, turned on the orangutan. She fought back, even landed a punch that knocked out a tooth, but in the end, she too fell. Pi, furious, grabbed a knife, ready to fight to the death. Then came the roar. The top lifted, and out burst the tiger, Richard Parker, devouring the hyena in one swift strike. The beast tossed aside Pi's oar, but didn't harm him. Seizing the chance, Pi leapt into the sea and swam to his little raft. Later, when things seemed calm, he rowed back to the lifeboat for food and water. The tiger growled fiercely, warning him off, but the top kept Pi safe. When a rat scurried across the boat, Pi tossed it straight into Richard Parker's jaws. That bought him a little time, but he knew he couldn't escape forever. By night, the tiger eyed the half-decayed zebra carcass and then turned to Pi with a look that said, "You can't run forever." Days slipped by. Pi scribbled rescue notes, sealed them in bottles, and tossed them to the sea with jokes. "This is my penis. If you like it, please rescue me. I'll make your crops grow. Oh, and I also have a tiger." But humor couldn't mask the truth. If he didn't tame the tiger, he was doomed. One stormy day, Pi marked his territory the only way he could, by peeing on the lifeboat. The seasick tiger had no choice but to accept the arrangement. To stay alive, Pi collected rainwater in buckets and even shared it with the very creature that terrified him. At the zoo, tigers ate 5 kilos of meat a day. If Richard Parker didn't get food, he might swim out and eat Pi instead. So Pi learned to fish. His first big catch, a giant fish, left him crying as he killed it with an axe. He prayed, thanking God, then tossed the catch to Richard Parker. Nights brought strange beauty. Glowing jellyfish lit up the sea, until suddenly a whale breached, smashing Pi's raft and sweeping away much of his food and supplies. Hunger gnawed at him, until another miracle arrived. Flying fish rained down from the sky. Richard Parker wanted them all, but Pi roared back, shouting, swinging a stick, and fought for his share. At last, boy and beast began to coexist. Pi trained him like a zookeeper's son would, rewarding obedience with fish. Days stretched into weeks. Pi fired every flare he had, but no ship ever came. Sometimes Richard Parker sat quietly, staring into the horizon like a poet lost in thought. Loneliness crept in for both of them. One night, another storm raged, so powerful it reminded Pi of the night he lost his family. As he gazed into the eye of the storm, he screamed to God for mercy, begging even Richard Parker to witness the awe of nature. The tiger struggled in the water, but Pi kept calling, desperate for a shared moment. When the storm passed, Pi's raft was gone. Only he and the tiger remained, weak with hunger and thirst. Pi cradled him, knowing they didn't have much time left. Then, salvation. For the third time, God spared them. Pi awoke to find their boat at a strange island, lush with greenery. Starving, he devoured plants and fruit, while Richard Parker feasted on meerkats. Freshwater pools sparkled by day, but Pi soon discovered their secret. By night, they turned to acid, dissolving everything. Even a human tooth lay hidden in a flower bud, proof the island was carnivorous. If they stayed, they'd die. At dawn, Pi gathered supplies, called to Richard Parker, and together they sailed away. Their final landing was Mexico. Exhausted, Pi collapsed on the sand, closer to heaven than ever before. Richard Parker walked past him without a glance, disappearing into the forest. That was the last Pi ever saw of him. Their strange partnership had ended in silence. Soon, rescuers arrived. Pi wept, both from relief and from heartbreak that Richard Parker had left without goodbye. Unbelievable, right? The Japanese investigators who came to question Pi thought so too. They asked for another story. In this version, there were no animals, only 4 humans. The hyena was the cook, the zebra, a sailor, the orangutan, Pi's mother, and Pi himself was the tiger. Which story was true? No one knows. The shipwreck's cause remained a mystery. What's certain is this: both stories ended in suffering and in survival. Pi lost his family, but not his life. His only regret? That before disappearing into the jungle, Richard Parker never once turned back to look at him. And that, dear friends, is Life of Pi.